The sea whispers when the world grows quiet. Its voice is soft yet endless, carrying secrets through time. Long before maps were drawn, sailors feared the rolling tide. They believed each wave belonged to a king, unseen but near. His name was Poseidon, ruler of the ocean's vast dominion. He was not bound by marble halls or golden crowns. His throne was the storm, his kingdom the shifting deep. To hear thunder above the sea was to hear his anger. To see calm waters shimmer was to witness his mercy. Mortals whispered prayers before voyages, hoping for safe passage. They left offerings at harbors, shells, and silver, to please him. Poseidon was not cruel, yet not gentle either. He was balance, like the sea itself, both beauty and peril. Legends called him the Stormbound King, eternal and restless. His story flows through myths, through songs, through ancient stone. And tonight, we travel back to those tides of legend. We sail not with ships, but with words and memory. The waves rise in our minds. The thunder follows close. This is the tale of Poseidon, the ocean's eternal sovereign. In the beginning, the world was young and trembling with chaos. The sky had no master, and the sea had no crown. The gods were not yet seated upon their eternal thrones, and among them was a child destined to rule the waters. This child was Poseidon, son of Cronus and Rhea, brother to Zeus and Hades. Yet his earliest days were shrouded in shadows of fear. Cronus, their father, consumed his children to preserve his power. He feared betrayal, feared prophecy, feared the rise of his own blood. One by one, his children vanished into the dark prison of his belly. But Rhea, weary of loss, hid Poseidon from this dreadful fate. She placed him in the care of hidden spirits near the sea. There, in secret, the infant Poseidon grew, far from his father's grasp. The waves became his lullaby, the winds his gentle guardians. He listened to the whispers of the tides as if they spoke his name. The sea carried him, rocked him, raised him in silence. Meanwhile, his siblings awaited in the shadow of Cronus's greed. One day, Zeus, the youngest, defied destiny and set them free. From the belly of Cronus came Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. The siblings, reunited, rose together like dawn after endless night. They overthrew their father not with cruelty, but with unyielding resolve. And when the world was at last divided, they cast lots for realms. Zeus claimed the sky, the endless vault of thunder and stars. Hades took the underworld, the silent kingdom of shadow and rest. And to Poseidon fell the sea, boundless, mysterious, eternal. The ocean stretched before him like a vast, untamed crown. It was not marble nor gold, but foam, salt, and storm. Poseidon did not see it as burden, but as destiny fulfilled. Every wave seemed to bow. Every current seemed to welcome him. The dolphins leapt in joy. The whales sang hymns of deep allegiance. Even the winds shifted course to honor the new sea king. Poseidon raised his trident, a gift of power forged by the Cyclopes. It shimmered with lightning. It trembled with the voice of storms. With it, he could summon springs, stir quakes, and guide the waters. He was no longer the hidden child, no longer the shadow of fear. He was now the stormbound king, eternal lord of the ocean. His siblings respected him, though his temper soon became known. For his heart, like the sea, was vast, restless, and unpredictable. One moment calm as a lake at dawn, the next fierce as a storm. Yet beyond his mood, Poseidon's reign carried a truth of balance. He was not merely a god of waves, but of creation itself. Where land met sea, his power shaped coastlines and carved new paths. He was the earth shaker, not in rage alone, but in divine artistry. Mountains trembled when he willed. Springs burst forth where he struck. The world, once broken, now stood balanced under 3 thrones. Poseidon's realm was infinite, and he would reign until the tides ceased. The sea was not empty space, but a kingdom without walls. It stretched farther than the eye could wander, endless and alive. Its floor shimmered with coral towers, rising like cities of light. Fishes darted like messengers, carrying whispers across the tides. The whales sang songs that echoed through valleys of water and stone. Jellyfish floated like lanterns, weaving patterns of silent fire. Every creature of the sea knew the name of their king. Poseidon's presence was felt in the currents, steady yet restless. He was not seated upon a throne of gold, but one of tides. His palace, Aegae, lay deep beneath the surface, a marvel of wonder. Columns of pearl stood tall, shells lined the halls with silver sheen. Sea nymphs danced through its chambers, their voices soft as waves. Triton, his herald, blew upon a conch shell to summon the deep. The halls were filled not with noise, but with harmony of the sea. Poseidon walked among his realm with steps like rolling thunder. Where he moved, waters curved and currents obeyed his will. Yet his kingdom was never still, for the ocean is forever shifting. Each tide brought change, each storm brought renewal of power. He ruled not with chains, but with the rhythm of nature itself. Mortals upon the surface knew his domain in another way. They felt his breath as the salty wind upon their faces. They saw his touch in the rise and fall of the endless waves. To them, the ocean was both gift and trial, mercy and warning. When Poseidon was pleased, the seas opened in gentle calm. Sailors spoke of smooth waters, safe journeys, and guiding stars. But when his temper stirred, storms rose with furious voices. Ships trembled, skies darkened, and waves towered like mountains. Even then, mortals knew the sea was not cruel, but alive. They offered prayers at harbors. Pouring wine into the tide, they cast wreaths of flowers, hoping their devotion would be seen. Poseidon listened, though never bound by mortal expectation. For the sea was vast, and he was its eternal spirit. He knew the depth of silence, where light had never wandered. He knew the hidden caves where treasures of the earth lay hidden. He knew the restless pull of tides that shaped shores each dawn. And in his knowing, he held power no other god possessed. For where sky and earth ended, the sea endured without end. Poseidon's kingdom was not confined to palace or border. It was the rolling tide, the storm, the calm, the eternal expanse. He ruled not by fear, but by awe, by respect of all who sailed. And those who listened to the waves could almost hear his voice. A voice carried in foam, in thunder, in the endless breath of the sea. The sea has moods, just as a man carries moods within his heart. Sometimes it is calm, a mirror reflecting the wide sky above. Other times it trembles, restless, with waves that speak of hidden fire. In these tides, mortals saw the spirit of Poseidon revealed. He was not a god of stillness, but of ever-changing power. The sea was his soul, vast, unending, shifting with each breath. When Poseidon's heart was gentle, the waters obeyed in silence. They spread like glass, carrying ships swiftly to their harbors. Sailors sang songs of gratitude, praising the kindness of their king. But when his temper rose, the sky darkened with swift fury. Winds gathered in his name, and waves rose like towering walls. To mortals, this was wrath. But to Poseidon, it was expression. He did not strike from cruelty, but from the truth of being. The ocean could not always be soft, nor could it always be calm. Like a living spirit, it needed to rise and fall without end. Thus, Poseidon became known as both protector and challenger. He granted safe passage, yet also demanded courage of those who sailed. His storms were trials, reminders that the sea was never owned. Fishermen prayed for mercy, but also for strength to endure his waves. They knew his nature was not malice, but balance eternal. The sea could nourish, carrying food and trade across the world. Yet the sea could also test, reminding mortals of their smallness. Poseidon's moods became legends told in harbors at night. Old sailors spoke of nights when he whispered calm winds. Others spoke of days when his storms bent masts like reeds. Children listened wide-eyed, learning respect for the ocean's king. Even the gods knew of his restless spirit, his unyielding pride. Zeus ruled the sky, but storms answered to Poseidon's trident. Hades ruled the underworld, but quakes came at Poseidon's will. Among the immortals, he was known for his sudden temper, yet also for his loyalty, for he protected his realm fiercely. The dolphins that guided ships, the nymphs that calmed the tides, these were his gifts, reminders that his love was deep as his seas. But always, there was the warning in his storms. Do not forget the ocean is not yours, it is mine. Do not forget the sea is alive, and I am its spirit. For Poseidon's nature was not to bend, but to remind. To remind mortals that power is not theirs to command. To remind even gods that the sea flows beyond measure. Thus, his temperament was not weakness, but truth revealed. A god bound not to thrones, but to tides eternal. A king whose moods shaped the very world's heartbeat. And so the sailors prayed, not to change him, but to honor him. For they knew that respect was the only safe passage. And the sea, like its master, would always remember. The gods of Olympus were not always united, for pride ran deep in their veins. Each sought honor, each sought recognition among mortals and immortals alike. Poseidon, ruler of the sea, was no different in his longing for esteem. He desired that his power be seen, not hidden in the depths below. Zeus, his brother, claimed the sky and thunder with commanding authority. Hades ruled the underworld, feared yet respected in his silent domain. But Poseidon's realm, vast as it was, lay beyond mortal sight. The sea was infinite, yet it seemed invisible compared to the heavens. And so Poseidon often struggled for acknowledgement among his kin. One tale speaks of his contest with Athena over a mortal city. The city was young, a place of promise, rich with human spirit. Its people prayed for a patron, a god to bless and guide them. Poseidon came first, striking the ground with his mighty trident. From the rock burst a spring of salt water, glittering in the sun. It roared with power, a symbol of the ocean's eternal gift. But the people found the water undrinkable, briny, and harsh. Then came Athena, calm, graceful, with wisdom in her hands. She planted a seed that grew into the first olive tree. It bore fruit, shade, and wood, gifts that mortals could use each day. The people chose Athena, for her gift promised life and prosperity. Poseidon, proud and fierce, felt the sting of rejection, yet the lesson lingered. Mortals craved not power, but sustenance. Still, his pride did not fade, for he knew his worth was vast. He was the sea, eternal and boundless, beyond mortal understanding. Another tale tells of his defiance against Zeus, his elder brother. Poseidon grew weary of thunder ruling above while the sea was ignored. Along with Hera and Apollo, he plotted against the king of gods. But the plan failed, and Zeus's power proved unshakable as the sky. Still, Poseidon did not cower, for storms are not easily silenced. His rivalry with Zeus continued, a clash of thunder and tide. Mortals, caught between them, feared the balance of storm and wave. Yet rivalry did not erase kinship, for brothers remain bound by fate. Poseidon's contests were not born of hatred, but of restless pride. He wanted the sea's voice to echo as loudly as the thunder. He wanted mortals to remember that beneath the sky lay the ocean, for without water, no life could thrive, no land could flourish. His rivalries shaped his legend, not as enemy, but as challenger. He was the god who reminded both mortals and gods of balance. For power is not one crown, nor one throne, but many. The sky above, the land below, and the sea eternal between. Poseidon stood firm, his pride as deep as the ocean floor. And though Athena claimed the city, his salt spring still flowed. It whispered of the sea's eternal presence, unseen but never absent. A reminder that Poseidon's gifts, though fierce, were gifts of truth. The truth that power may not always win love, but it endures. Mortals lived always with the sea at their side, and thus with Poseidon. To them he was not a distant god, but a presence felt each day. When fishermen cast their nets, they whispered his name with hope. When sailors raised their sails, they prayed for his guiding hand. The sea gave life, food, and pathways to distant lands. Yet it also took lives, swallowed ships, and erased dreams in storms. And so Poseidon was both blessing and burden, protector and judge. He listened to prayers carried by the wind, soft as whispers of gulls. Some prayed for wealth, for nets heavy with silver fish. Some prayed for safe return, for children waiting on the shore. Others prayed for mercy, fearing the dark clouds upon the horizon. To those who honored him, Poseidon showed kindness in his way. He sent dolphins to guide their vessels through fog and shadow. He calmed the waves so boats could glide smoothly to their ports. He opened currents that carried traders swiftly to distant harbors. Mortals saw these as gifts, the proof of his watchful eye. But those who disrespected the sea often met harsher lessons. A careless offering, a broken vow, a word spoken in arrogance. For Poseidon's pride was vast, and he guarded his realm fiercely. He was not cruel without reason, but justice flowed with his tide. A storm might rise suddenly, not to destroy, but to remind. It would shake the ship, bend the mast, test the courage of men. If they endured, they returned wiser, more reverent than before. If they failed, the sea claimed them gently, without malice or joy. For the ocean did not punish, it balanced, as all nature must. Legends spread of sailors who earned his favor through devotion. One spoke of a captain who cast golden cups into the waves. In return, dolphins circled his ship, guiding him through a deadly storm. Another told of a boy who sang to the sea each morning. Poseidon heard and sent calm waters so the village never knew hunger. Such stories wove his image not of terror, but of majesty. He was a god who could be near, if one listened with respect. The sea became a temple, its surface an altar without walls. Offerings were cast not in stone halls, but in open water. Wine poured into the tide, flowers scattered on the waves. Each act was a conversation, a bond between mortal and God. Sailors knew the ocean was never to be commanded, only honored. And so Poseidon's relationship with mortals was woven with awe. He was guardian of journeys, witness to every departure and return. The harbor bells rang for him, the sea songs were sung in his name. Through him, mortals learned that survival was not just skill, but reverence. They learned that the sea was alive, with a king whose spirit endured. And that respect, more than fear, was the compass to guide their path. The sea was vast, yet within it lived countless creatures, each tied to Poseidon's will. Among them were beings of wonder, not just fish and whales, but spirits and guardians. Nereids, the daughters of the sea, danced in waves like moonlight upon water. They whispered to sailors, guiding them gently or luring them with mystery. They were not cruel but curious, daughters of Nereus and kin to Poseidon's realm. Mortals told tales of voices heard in foam, laughter carried by salt air. These were the Nereids, gentle yet distant companions of the Stormbound King. Then there were the hippocamps, steeds with the bodies of horses and tails of fish. They carried Poseidon's chariot, leaping across the waves with silver manes. Their hooves struck water like thunder, yet left no wound upon the sea. Mortals who glimpsed them swore they had seen living waves come alive. Legends spread of hippocamps rescuing drowning sailors, lifting them to safety. They were symbols of Poseidon's swiftness, the strength of tide harnessed in grace. Beyond them swam great whales, creatures ancient as the sea itself. Some said they carried the songs of Poseidon, deep tones echoing forever. Others claimed they bore wisdom, keeping secrets of the ocean floor. In his kingdom lived also tritons, half man, half fish, heralds of the deep. They blew conch shells to calm waters or summon rising storms. Each blast was a command, as though the sea itself obeyed. They were Poseidon's messengers, his voice when mortals strayed too far. Yet not all beings were gentle. Some tested the courage of sailors. Monstrous forms rose from abyssal depths, not out of cruelty, but of balance. For the sea was not meant to be safe, but alive with challenge. Sailors who feared too deeply often mistook guardians for demons. Yet Poseidon did not delight in fear, but in respect born from awe. To him, every creature had purpose, every life connected to the tide. He watched dolphins leap with joy beside ships and smiled. He watched sharks circle with hunger, reminding mortals of caution. He ruled not by erasing danger, but by weaving harmony in chaos. His domain was not a sanctuary, but a realm of endless truth. Each creature embodied a lesson for mortals who dared to voyage. The dolphin taught of friendship, the whale of patience, the stormfish of strength. Even the smallest shell whispered his rule as waves polished it smooth. In their songs and cries, Poseidon's presence was eternal. The sea was alive, not just water, but voices, forms, and souls. And through them, the god of oceans spoke without words. To mortals, these creatures were myths, marvels beyond their grasp. But to Poseidon, they were family, the endless children of the deep. He guarded them, and in turn, they carried his spirit into every tide. So when a sailor cast his eyes across the horizon, he saw more than water. He saw a living kingdom, where Poseidon reigned not as tyrant, but as keeper. A kingdom where every wave, every scale, every cry of gull or whale sang one truth: that the sea was alive, eternal, and sovereign under the Stormbound King. Poseidon's realm did not end with the ocean's surface, for beneath lay mysteries untold. The seabed stretched wide like a hidden kingdom, veiled in shadow and silence. There stood his palace, Aegae, built of coral, pearl, and shimmering stone. Its walls glowed faintly, lit by currents that carried the sea's heartbeat. Columns rose like frozen waves, arching high into halls vast as caverns. There, Poseidon ruled, his throne carved from a single flawless shell. Upon it he sat, the trident in his hand, the sea's power in his grasp. Nereids danced within the palace, their voices echoing like song. Tritons stood as guards, their conch shells ready to command the tides. The hippocamps rested at the gates, tossing silver manes in still waters. All creatures of the sea knew this was the heart of their world. It was not a fortress, but a sanctuary, alive with eternal motion. Streams flowed through its chambers, carrying whispers from distant shores. Each current bore prayers, songs, and offerings from mortals above. They reached the palace like threads of connection, binding worlds together. Here, Poseidon listened, his ears tuned to both gods and men. The palace was his anchor, yet it was also his mirror. For though its beauty was timeless, its heart beat with constant change. Like the sea itself, it shifted, adapted, and endured all storms. No wall was fixed, for water reshaped its form endlessly. To visitors, it seemed alive, breathing with the pulse of the ocean. Within its chambers lay treasures, not of gold, but of memory. Shells that held the voices of lost sailors rested in sacred alcoves. Pearls formed by centuries of pressure glowed like captured moons. Maps of currents and stars were etched into crystal walls. They told stories of journeys, storms, and discoveries across ages. This was not just a palace, but a library of the sea. Every ripple of water was a page, every echo a verse. And Poseidon, seated upon his throne, was its eternal keeper. Mortals who dreamed of the palace often awoke with awe. For in dreams, some claimed to have seen its halls. They spoke of vast chambers where fish shimmered like stars. They described stairways of coral spiraling into glowing depths. They swore they heard the sea's voice, calm yet commanding. Whether dream or vision, none could say with certainty. But all agreed the palace was real, eternal beneath the waves. And Poseidon's presence within it was undeniable, like thunder in silence. Here, he was not only a king, but a guardian of secrets. He guarded the balance of sea and sky, of life and death. For within the palace of Aegae, the stormbound king watched unceasing. And through its endless shifting halls, the ocean itself remembered. Every tide, every wave, every storm was born of its heart. And every mortal who set sail was, in some way, touched by it. For the palace of Poseidon was not only his home, but the soul of the sea. The sea was not only a kingdom of beauty, but also of trials for mortals who dared to cross it. Poseidon, though a guardian, often tested the courage of those who set sail. For he knew the ocean was not meant to be conquered, only respected. Each storm, each tide, each sudden silence carried a lesson for humankind. Sailors spoke of challenges that came not from malice, but from the sea's truth. One tale told of a fleet that set sail without offering prayers to the god. Their arrogance was great, for they believed skill alone could tame the waters. But Poseidon sent a fog, thick and endless, that swallowed their sight. For days they drifted blind, unable to see stars or horizon. Their voices rose in fear until at last they remembered his name. An offering was cast into the waves, and the fog gently parted. They returned home wiser, their pride tempered by humility. Another story told of a young sailor who longed for adventure. He set out alone, without map or guidance, chasing only the horizon. The sea tested him with sudden winds and fierce waves that shook his boat. But the boy held fast, his heart steady, his spirit unbroken. When dawn rose, dolphins leapt beside him, guiding him to safety. He returned not just alive, but transformed, a man with the sea in his soul. Such trials were not punishments, but mirrors of mortal strength and weakness. Poseidon's challenges revealed what lay hidden within the heart of men. Some crumbled in fear, while others rose with courage never known before. To the god of the sea, both outcomes were truths to be respected. The sea reflected life itself, uncertain, vast, and demanding of reverence. It asked not for conquest, but for partnership between mortal and tide. Legends told of storms that seemed alive, bending masts without breaking them, of waves that lifted ships high only to set them down unharmed. These were trials of faith, not destruction, reminders of the sea's spirit. To endure them was to earn Poseidon's silent blessing. For the god was a teacher as much as a ruler, stern but just. His lessons were etched in salt and spray, in winds and tides eternal. And mortals who listened came to know a deeper wisdom, that strength was not in domination, but in harmony with the wild. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to face it. And that respect was the truest compass to guide a sailor's path. Thus, each voyage was both journey and test, each storm both danger and gift. Through them, Poseidon shaped mortals, not with words, but with waves. And in every port where ships returned, stories of his trials were told. Stories that reminded all who listened that the stormbound king still watched. Not with cruelty, but with the patient eyes of the sea itself. For every test, every storm, every calm tide was his way of teaching. And every mortal who braved the ocean became, in some way, his student. Poseidon's power was not bound only to the sea, for rivers and springs carried his touch. Wherever water flowed, his spirit moved, linking mountain streams to ocean depths. Mortals believed that when they drank from a clear spring, they tasted his blessing. Farmers prayed to him as much as sailors, for rain was kin to the sea. Clouds drew their strength from ocean mist, and rivers ran back to Poseidon's realm. Thus, he was not distant, but present in every droplet of life. Stories told of villages where drought struck, fields cracked, and rivers vanished. When offerings were made to Poseidon, rains would return like mercy. He was not just god of storms, but of renewal and balance. Water, after all, was both destroyer and giver, much like his own spirit. One tale told of a shepherd who lost his flock to thirst. He prayed at a dry well, offering only a humble shell he had found. That night, the well filled with water, pure and endless as the sea. The shepherd's village thrived, and his story spread like ripples on water. Another legend spoke of travelers lost in desert sands. They cried out for aid, and from beneath the dunes, a spring arose. It was said Poseidon himself had struck the ground from afar. The desert bloomed for a season, reminding mortals of water's divinity. For even where no sea touched, the ocean's king could reach. His presence was a thread weaving land and sea into one fabric. Mortals came to see him not only as a god of storms, but of balance. He was the cycle itself. The rising cloud, the falling rain, the rushing river. Even springs hidden in forests whispered his name through their clear waters. Children tossed pebbles into ponds, believing ripples carried messages to him. And though his palace lay beneath waves, Poseidon was near in every brook. His reach extended beyond sailors and fishermen to all who lived. For none could live without water, and thus none lived outside his care. This truth made him both feared and revered in equal measure. Mortals saw him not as distant, but as woven into daily life. When they drank, when they bathed, when they planted, they honored him. For each act touched water, and through water, touched the god himself. The ocean may have been vast and mysterious, but its essence was everywhere. And Poseidon's power was not confined to storms, but to the flow of life. He was a reminder that no kingdom, no city, no soul could endure without water. And so prayers rose not only from harbors, but from fields and forests. Offerings were cast not only into waves, but into rivers and springs. Everywhere water moved, Poseidon's voice echoed in the current. It was a quiet power, less dramatic than thunder, yet deeper in truth. For storms could frighten and seas could dazzle, but water itself sustained all. And through it, the stormbound king was ever near, unseen yet eternal. In the twilight of tales, Poseidon's name carried both awe and comfort. He was the king who ruled not with crowns, but with the rhythm of tides. Each wave was a heartbeat, steady and timeless, echoing through mortal lives. Fishermen whispered his name before casting nets, trusting his unseen guidance. Children learned that the sea was not enemy, but teacher of patience. Its calm taught stillness, its storms taught respect, and both were Poseidon's voice. Legend said he listened to the smallest prayers, even those spoken in fear. When sailors trembled beneath dark skies, they believed his gaze steadied them. When farmers prayed for rain, they felt his mercy in falling drops. The stormbound king was not bound by wrath alone, but by care unspoken. His love was fierce, like waves embracing shores again and again. Mortals came to understand that balance was his true gift. He reminded them that life and sea shared the same breath. Both were endless, both fragile, both demanding reverence to endure. And so, temples rose not as fortresses, but as open arms to him. Altars bore seashells, clay vessels of water, and humble tokens of thanks. It was said Poseidon needed no gold, only sincerity in devotion. In their songs, mortals called him Father of Rivers, Shepherd of Tides. They saw him as eternal guardian, not distant lord. For though his trident commanded storms, it also calmed restless seas. Every horizon carried his promise, every ripple carried his touch. Even silence at sea was believed to be his gift of peace. And when the moon pulled tides, mortals saw it as Poseidon's dance. He was never far, always woven into water's eternal journey. In time, his myths became more than stories, but lessons for life. They taught reverence for nature, respect for balance, and awe for mystery. They taught that strength was not only power, but harmony with the world. The stormbound king became symbol of both fear and hope combined. For to know water was to know Poseidon, and to know him was to know life. Even when centuries passed and new gods rose in mortal minds, his presence endured wherever rivers flowed, rains fell, or seas stretched wide. For water would never leave the earth, and so neither would he. The ocean still roared his name, the waves still sang his hymn. Sailors still looked to the horizon, seeking the unseen guardian of tides. Children still tossed pebbles into rivers, sending wishes to his depths. And mortals still drank from springs, knowing they tasted his eternal blessing. The stormbound king was not gone, nor would he ever be. His realm was eternal, his power unbroken, his spirit unforgotten. And so long as water flowed, so too would his legend. Poseidon, lord of the deep, guardian of balance, father of tides. A king not bound by time, but carried forever by the endless sea. As the story draws to its close, the sea remains a mirror of eternity. Waves rise and fall, carrying whispers of the stormbound king through the ages. Poseidon's trident may rest unseen, yet its power still shapes the horizon. Every tide is his breath, every ripple his gentle touch upon the world. Mortals look upon the sea and know they stand before something greater. Not fear alone, but reverence guides their hearts when they face the ocean. For they remember the stories, passed from hearth to harbor, from elder to child. Tales of balance, of storms and mercy, of lessons hidden in water's voice. These stories are not chains of the past, but bridges into tomorrow. They remind humankind that harmony with nature is the truest strength. The ocean is vast, yet it bends to the rhythm of respect and care. Poseidon's legend endures not as a warning, but as a guiding star. He is not a god forgotten, but a spirit woven into the fabric of life. Farmers hear him in the rain that nourishes their fields. Sailors feel him in the winds that steady their sails. Children sense him in the laughter of streams and the calm of ponds. All who touch water touch the stormbound king, whether they know or not. For his essence lies not in distant temples, but in every drop of life. He is reminder and guardian, timeless as the ocean itself. And though ages shift, his presence does not fade with time. When mortals honor the sea, they honor him in silence and in song. No monument could hold him, no crown could define him. His kingdom is the endless horizon, his throne the restless waves. And so his tale continues, not bound to parchment, but to the earth itself. It is told in the crash of surf, in the rhythm of rain, in the calm of tides. It is sung in lullabies by mothers near shores, whispered in prayers by sailors. It is etched not in stone, but in memory, fluid and eternal. The stormbound king teaches that power is not only force, but balance, that respect for the world sustains life more than conquest ever could. And so long as rivers run, seas swell, and rains fall, he endures. His legend remains a compass, pointing toward humility and wonder. The ocean's depths hide countless mysteries, but one truth remains clear. Poseidon is not gone, for he lives in the flow of every tide. His voice hums in the seashell, his gaze glimmers in the horizon. His hand steadies the storm, his heart beats within the sea. And as mortals stand before the endless waters, they stand before him. The stormbound king, eternal, unseen, yet forever present in the world. And thus the tale closes not with silence, but with the sound of waves. For the sea sings on, carrying his name into eternity.